Welcome to the Heal Yourself podcast, where we dive deep into all things healing. I'm Denise, a speech language pathologist and a self-love coach for adults and teens.
And I'm Kira, a traditional naturopath and functional nutritionist, and we're here to guide you through the transformative process of healing your body, mind, and soul.
From the latest in functional medicine to nurturing your relationship with yourself, healing trauma, and even transforming your money story, we're here to empower you with the knowledge and tools to create lasting change.
So whether you're looking to heal physically, emotionally, or spiritually, join us as we explore the many paths to wholeness and wellness. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Heal Yourself podcast. Today I am joined by guest Jonathan Schechter. And he is our first male guest. Just going to throw that out there. But he is a somatic integration coach and certified breathwork facilitator with extensive experience working in expanded states of consciousness, as well as trauma and nervous system regulation. He holds a certificate in somatic experiencing, as well as several breathwork certifications, including neurodynamic, holotropic, and oxygen advantage. We're going to ask him all these things. And then working with his protocol that combines clinical skills and transpersonal awareness, he has facilitated hundreds of breathwork sessions and supported clients in integrating their experiences into meaningful change. Jonathan, I'm really excited to chat with you today and to hear what all of this fun stuff is.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kira.
So tell us how you got to this place first. Like, what led you to breathwork? Because I feel like there's usually a journey, right? It's not like you just woke up as a child and said, I want to be a breathwork facilitator.
There's definitely a journey, and funny story, not that I grew up with it, but my dad was always into breathwork, even though I didn't really know about it. I found out when I was a teenager and taking a lot of acid, and my dad tried to sit me down and say, you could get just as high with this breath work and meditation stuff as you are. And I was basically told him off at the time. But yeah, we laugh about it now. But the main journey began about 7 years ago. I was going through a pretty rough divorce and just, what you would call a dark night of the soul. And breath work came into my life at a time when I was really struggling, and initially was sort of an adjunct to doing cold plunges at first. If for those of in your audience that might be familiar with the Wim Hof method, the breath work and the ice baths are kind of going hand in hand. So initially it was like, well, I know the ice baths are helping, but I'm kind of skeptical about the breath work. But then when I first started having those initial experiences and realizing how powerful it could be, that was when I started to get really more interested in it.
Love it. Well, and you do several different types of breath work. And that's the thing. When I talk to my clients, I'm like, let's just work on optimal breathing. And if you want to add in breath work, you can. But like, my knowledge of breath work is pretty limited. It's like the 4-7-8 box breathing, like, minor stuff that you don't have to be certified in. But there are all these different types of breath work. Talk to me about, you had the neurodynamic, holotropic, oxygen advantage. Tell us what the types of breath work are that you work with.
Yeah, so I like to break breathwork into three different categories. So first, breathwork that can help with awareness, awareness of your body, of your mind, and even of your spirit. That's a really great place to begin. It's very accessible. Just about anyone can benefit from starting mindfulness practice or starting to do more somatic based awareness practices that usually involve the breath. And then the second category is breathwork that helps with nervous system regulation. Usually when we're talking about that type of breathwork, it's things like you just mentioned, 4-7-8 or box breathing or coherence or cadence breathing, things that like someone is feeling dysregulated in some way, or they need to be able to sleep better or calm down easier or faster. And they're doing a specific type of breathing to help down regulate the nervous system. Now, there's also breath work that you can upregulate the nervous system with, things like breath of fire or lion's breath, certain pranayama techniques that are bringing more energy into the body and sort of upregulating the nervous system into a more sympathetic state. Not all the way into like a full fight or flight response, but just energizing the system. And then the third type of breath work is holotropic breath work, or breath work that can induce in an altered state, expanded states of consciousness, things that mirror or are similar to, say, taking a medium dose of, psilocybin, psychedelic mushrooms. And that type of breathing is maybe not for everybody. It's usually best done with a facilitator. Or somebody that at least knows what they're doing. And but it is a very profound method for self-discovery, for working through trauma, for connecting to purpose, or just, being able to access these states without taking hallucinogenics or psychedelics. So
Yeah.
to me, in my work, like all three of them are interwoven, and based on where my clients are, we might start at one place and then move towards a deeper modality as we go.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, so many listeners, I guarantee, are dealing with nervous system dysregulation. I mean, Denise and I are always talking about that because we just live in a society that's in fight or flight, right? Let's keep doing
Right.
more and throwing more at it. So I feel like breath work is something that most people need. What is the time commitment, right? Like people are always like, oh, I don't have 45 minutes to do breath work. What is this going to
Sure.
entail?
Yeah, it's something that I always mention, and I've worked with a lot of people that are brand new, or for a few years I worked in residential treatment with people that were really severely dysregulated and had anxiety disorders, or really bad depression, addiction, and that was one of the things I always stressed is you don't have to take a long period of time to start seeing the benefits of breathing. Even if you were to add a breathwork practice of, 5, maybe even 10 minutes, but 5 minutes to start every day, it's going to start to uh, acclimate your nervous system to the state in which you're trying to achieve, right? And that's part of the benefit of these practices. It's something that your nervous system is going to get more used to over time and be able to access easier and quicker, because you're practicing in it, right? Just like the in the body, like you're not going to be as strong or as flexible in the muscles that you're working out when you go to the gym the first day than when you go to the gym, consistently after a few months. The nervous system is the same way. Like, even there's some people that might respond really strongly, positively or negatively, the first time that they do even regulating types of breath work. But it's allowing the nervous system to get used to the system. Like, some people are, like you said, so dysregulated that actually like letting their guard down and coming into a state of more relaxation might not feel safe.
Hmm.
I've done classes where we're doing all, breath work for relaxation. And let's say there's 10 people in the class. We've all done the same breath work for like 45 minutes. And 9 of the people come out of it and they're like, wow, I feel so relaxed. I've never felt so relaxed. This is amazing. And there's one person that's like, I feel like I'm about to panic. Like, what's going on? But they were doing the same breath work as everybody else. And sometimes that like creates some questions of like, what's wrong with me, or how come I didn't have the same response? And really, it's just working with the nervous system where that person's at. Like, maybe 45 minutes isn't the right amount of time for them. It's like, hey, can we do a few minutes, or introduce more awareness and resources for them, so that as the nervous system comes out of this fight or flight or defense, or looking around for the imminent danger, it actually learns how to trust that it's okay to experience that relaxation.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I've had some clients, like I'm a huge fan of meditation too, and small things, right? I'm like, listen to a 5-minute guided meditation, like something. But I've had clients over the years come back and tell me like, I don't do meditation. I'm like, oh, okay. Does it not resonate with you? No, like I try to do 10 minutes and I'm like so wired and anxious. I'm like, oh, that's a really good clue. Like How
Right.
often do you slow down? How often do you take time for yourself? How often do you relax? And they're like, no, I don't do that. Ding, ding, ding. Like maybe we need to work on that.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of these practices initially we're looking for a state change, right? We're looking for going from I feel super anxious or stressed out to I feel calmer, I feel more relaxed, I feel like I can go to sleep right now. That's a state change, but in the longer term, we're looking for something that's creating a trait change, like it's actually changing the baseline of the system. The system is more able to to move into that state of relaxation, which depending on your own history and what trauma you've experienced and what you've got going on in your life may be easier or more challenging than the people around you. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It just means that we have to like work in a titrated way to meet the nervous system where it's at. And even if it's introducing moments at a time of what regulation feels like, or what it feels like to actually be able to let your guard down fully and just fully be present with what's happening, then that's where we start. And then we can build on that. And that's why I think like those awareness practices for some people are just as important, if not more important, place to start than like, hey, let's do box breathing for 10 minutes. And, you're definitely going to feel better from doing that. What I like to do actually is, have like one class where we just go through several different regulation type of breath work. And the whole goal is to say, let's be curious about how each of these types of breathing actually feels in the body. And you don't have to like all of them. The whole goal is if this is your laboratory, your body, your nervous system, your experience, like let's experiment and let's see which one of these techniques actually feels the best for you right now. And then that's good data for what you can continue to practice on a longer term basis. And that might change over time. Like I've gone through significant amounts of trauma myself. And at one point, 478 was like my go-to practice. And even something that's maybe a little bit more accessible, like 448, like not holding for so long. But as I started to triage my own nervous system and start to like learn other techniques and resources as well, that became less interesting for me. Like I was able to move to something that's more, coherent or, more kind of meditative and actually feel more comfortable in that space. So just because something's working for you right now doesn't mean that it has to like be the thing forever. But without being able to check it out and really give it a shot, how do you really, determine that?
Yeah. And I think that's such an important point to bring up. Like Denise and I are always talking about awareness on here. But when I'm talking to my clients, I mean, I'm a nutritionist by trade. So
Mm,
bioindividuality is what I tell people. Like you're different from someone else. Just because someone swears by 478 breathing, that might not be your jam. And seasons of life change. Like, okay, it didn't work for you before. Are you willing to try it now? And if it still doesn't work, great. Let's find another thing. But I think people sometimes are so dysregulated that they don't want to try new things, or they don't
right.
want to try things that hadn't worked for them before. And
Yeah.
so I want to touch on the nervous system piece. By now, I hope all of our listeners know what the nervous system is. However, we do have a lot of people dysregulated, or they're dysregulated, but they have no clue. Are there
Sure.
certain clues to you, or even that you talk with your clients about, like, this is how to identify if you're a little bit dysregulated?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. Well, the first thing, especially around so many people being dysregulated, one of the things that I always stress is that we don't have to feel ashamed or like there's something wrong with us when we start to work with the nervous system and figure out like, oh, I feel dysregulated. Um, and dysregulation doesn't mean that I'm calm all the time. It just means that my system is able to adjust and adapt to the circumstances that I'm experiencing on a day-to-day basis in a reasonable way. Right. Like if I was to walk outside, I live in Tucson in the desert. If I was to walk outside my door right now and see a rattlesnake, it would be it would be a reasonable, response for me to like get surprised to try to move away from that danger quickly. It wouldn't just be like, oh, hey, there's a rattlesnake. Like I'm so regulated that I don't care about this dangerous animal that's right near me. That's a natural response. But if I'm sitting here with you and that happened an hour ago or 2 hours ago or 6 hours ago, and my heart is still racing, I still am checking under the table to make sure that there's no rattlesnakes. That's not quite as reasonable a response. So I want my nervous system to be able to adapt and to adjust to the life that I'm living, and that's what regulation really means. So just being able to say, "Hey, if I'm wound up all the time, if I am constantly checking for something that might be wrong, or I'm looking for danger, which is really what anxiety is like, sort of hypervigilance about what danger is out there sort of in the future, or, I'm depressed, which from a nervous system perspective means that I'm kind of stuck in this collapsed state where my nervous system is basically shutting down and preventing me from feeling all of my emotions, all of my sensations. That there are good reasons that this is happening, and that's a good place to start rather than like, oh my god, like there's something wrong with me and I have to figure out how to regulate. It's like, hey, my nervous system is taking really really good care of me right now. And so many people have like shame around the state that their nervous system might kind of default to, when we sit down and we can kind of say, you know what, the primary job of this nervous system is keeping you safe. And from that perspective, it's doing a really great job because you're here. No matter what you experience, no matter what like horrific thing that you went through, you're here. And that's due in part to the way that your nervous system protected you and, helped you adapt to whatever crazy, unfortunate, toxic, traumatic experiences that you live through. And then from that place, we can say, am I in danger right now? Right. Because that's where that dysregulation comes from, is like, am I actually in danger right now? Like, is there a snake sneaking up on me, or not? Right. And if not, like, how do I get my nervous system to like actually realize that, oh, I'm not in any danger right now. So from that, that's where I think a lot of the somatic experiencing has really helped me, because when we start doing somatic experiencing, a lot of the work is simply recognizing that, like, it's, me asking, hey, so how are you feeling right now? And then from there, from just that curiosity and that noticing, especially when people respond with like, I feel really stressed out, or I feel really anxious, or I feel really afraid, is usually, if you've never examined that, if you've never gotten curious about it, that feels like the whole entire experience, which is okay, right? But then we get a little bit more curious and we can say, okay, I hear that you're feeling anxious right now. Do you feel that everywhere? Right? Like if you were to check in with your feet right now and really notice like how your feet feel, do your feet feel as anxious as like that knot in your belly or that tightness in your chest? And most of the time, there's some place in the body that we can notice actually feels good. And even if it's not feeling good, it feels more neutral than where that discomfort is. Or even we can even start with like, what feels 1% less terrible than everything else. And once we can start to establish that, that's when we can start to like open up that awareness and actually start to track these sensations in the body, because we're wired to attach a meaning to our sensations and our experiences. So
Mhm.
it's not just, here's this emotion that I feel, or here's the sensation that I feel. It's the story that my mind is telling me about what that feeling, that experience means, which is usually based on what happened in the past. And again, starting to decouple what's happening now from like what happened in the past.
Mm. This is so good because I mean, it ties in with so many things we've spoken about on here, but what I do too, working with the physical body of like you have to create that awareness. That's key of like
Yeah.
understand how do I feel in this moment right now? And if I am tight, if I am reactive, oh, okay, I'm dysregulated and that's okay. But then what do I need? And just checking in with your body and where am I holding on to the tension can give clues into the physical ailments that people also deal with because we are so disconnected, I feel like. I know I was for a long time. Like, I didn't check in with my body and understand, like, oh, my stomach's always tight. I wonder if that's why I have so many digestive issues. Like, that's where I'm
Mm,
holding all the tension.
yeah. Yeah, and those type of practices, the more that you do them, the easier it gets. But it's a area that is severely underdeveloped in most people. And the thing is that the nervous system, and because the nervous system and the breath are so connected, the breath also is constantly like actually speaking to us. Like there's actually a language that's happening in the body all the time. Most of us just aren't paying attention to that at all. So like once you start to notice it, once you start to learn how to like actually track it, it becomes easier to like understand that language because just like any language, you don't like walk in and start being conversational the first day that you try to speak it. At first, you're just trying to listen and to comprehend, right? So like if I start to notice that all of a sudden my breath is getting more shallow or it starts to feel panty or I usually breathe through my nose but all of a sudden I'm like wanting to breathe through my mouth, those are good indications of like some things happening in my body. And the same thing, like people start to notice where they're like just like you said, like where they're holding. Oh gee, like I noticed that my shoulders are always up by my ears, or my you know this part of me is tight, or this is happening whenever I, have to go to work and talk to this particular person, or, um, when I'm driving in traffic, or these different areas. So a lot of it is just starting to have awareness of that.
Mm.
And we could even like go through like a quick exercise that your audience could go through and start to do if you'd like.
I do. I have one question that I want to ask
Yeah,
because
sure.
I've heard a bit about somatic experiencing, but I think there's confusion between somatic movement, somatic
Hmm.
experiencing. I feel like there's another one in there. Can you tell us what somatic experiencing is?
Yeah, so somatic experiencing is a therapeutic modality that was developed by Dr. Peter Levine. And in essence, it seeks to allow the nervous system to come back into um, a space of whatever it wants to do, like that's where we come back to that shame and that I spoke of a few minutes ago. Is like so many people are holding or suppressing, whether that's conscious or unconscious. And the idea within somatic experiencing is that trauma, both what we would maybe clinically consider as trauma, like shock trauma, or things that I know as trauma, like complex trauma, the things that we experience growing up, oftentimes, that is simply an overwhelm of the system, right? Like our nervous system is there to keep us safe. When we encounter something that is unsafe or dangerous, whether that's one big event that has a beginning and an end, or something like complex trauma where it may be like an unsafe environment that we lived in for maybe our entire childhood growing up. Um, that the system has to find a way to manage that. And if there's an overwhelm to the system, it's going to basically shut down. And one of the things that somatic experiencing brings in is looking at that the trauma in the nervous system from that lens of like, okay, there's overwhelm in the system, and trauma is not just what happened to us, it's the way that we responded, it's the way that we experienced it. There's going to be a huge amount of difference. For instance, like two people could go through the same traumatic type of event, right? Like let's take something that's like kind of neutral, like a car accident, right? Many of us have experienced this. Now, there's going to be a difference between somebody that experiences a car crash and like say they go home and they're like, "Oh my God, I just had this horrific thing. I felt like I almost died." And like maybe their spouse or their parent goes, "Oh, it's not that bad. Like, just get over it. Like, what are you crying about? Hey, and by the way, the trash needs to be taken out and the dishes still need to be done. Like, chop chop, right?" And somebody that comes home and is like, I just had this awful experience. I feel so terrible. And somebody's like, oh my God, that must have been so awful. Come in, like, let's like let you lay down. Let's put a blanket on you. Maybe like, you know,
Mm.
do you need like a cup of tea? Like, do you need to just sit and like I can just listen to you for a minute, right? And so there's gonna the way that we're experiencing that same event can be totally different. So in somatic experiencing, we're just allowing the system to go through those changes, those things that we're holding on to. So for instance, I might notice as somebody's talking about something from their childhood that like their fists start to clench,
Mm.
like they're starting to get angry, and and I'm like, hey, so I'm just curious, do you notice how your fists are clenching up right there? And a lot of the time, it's completely unconscious, or maybe it's a different experience. Maybe they start to talk about it, and I'm like, so what are you noticing right now? And they're like, I feel like I want to run, right? So it's allowing the system to experience the overwhelm that's still stuck in the system in a safe way so that it can actually discharge, because all that the energy wants to do is complete. You could think of like trauma that's stuck in the body as like a circuit that wants to complete. It that's the nature
Mhm.
of the event, right? And one of Peter's observations that he started with was like looking at how wild animals experience trauma. The gazelle that is, yeah, the gazelle that gets chased by the lion that ends up getting away, like gets up and discharges, it shakes, and then it goes back to just living its life. It doesn't go like, damn, I need a drink, or like, right? So like, what he noticed was that wild animals experience trauma, but they don't get traumatized the way that we
Mhm.
do. And the big difference is that human beings are conditioned to not feel and not experience that completion, right? So the system is like going along, it's regulated, and then there's a dysregulation, but then there's this completion that comes at the end of it that allows the system to go back into regulation. And over time, if we're not able to do that, we're going to get, sort of stuck in dysregulation. So it's allowing the system to like start to express that. It might be trembling, like you mentioned. It might be crying. It might be yelling. It might be screaming. It might be just a lot like slowing down, those fists balling up, and like really being with the emotion that comes up, and so that a little bit of it can discharge.
Mhm.
And depending on how severe the experience was, how long someone's been living with it, and how safe they feel actually like being with the experience, that can take a longer or shorter amount of time. But it's just allowing the system to come back into a sense of safety,
Yeah.
which, and for some people, like that's just being able to co-regulate with a facilitator or with somebody else is the beginning of that,
Mhm.
because we learned how to co-regulate before we learned how to self-regulate,
Yep.
as children, right? And for some of us, like we might have to relearn that or be able to re-experience that in a healthy way, so that we can start to learn how to regulate by ourselves.
Yeah. Mm. I'm like, yep, co-regulating with my mother as a child. Like, no wonder I was in fight or flight for so long. But it's so true because, yeah, that's who you're regulating with, is whoever you're living with.
Right. And that's where that complex stuff really comes in, and is, and it's important to learn how to work with that in a different way, right? Like the car crash example,
Mhm.
there was life before the car crash, and then there was this traumatic incident, and then there's life after the car crash. And some of that is like, hey, buddy, like do you think do you think the car is still crashing? No. Okay, well then we can start to work from that, right?
Mhm.
Whereas the things that we didn't get, the traumas of omission that we experienced in childhood, of like not getting our needs met or not having our emotional states be validated or accepted or even safe to express, those are things that we've been living with for longer periods of time, and our nervous systems have adapted around that. So some of it is just starting to notice like, ooh, like when I get around this person, which may be mom, or it might be even be somebody that's behaving in the same way as
Mhm.
mom, that the system is regulate or I'm sorry, is recognizing it as the same amount of unsafety that it originally experienced. And that, when we first were experiencing that, there was a life or death experience, right? Like if we were reliant on a parental figure, which all of us were at some point in time, and that figure wasn't giving us what we actually needed, it becomes very easy to understand how we could interpret that as this is life threatening.
Yeah.
And then we just carry that imprint and that pattern into our adult lives, usually experiencing other things that sort of reinforce it, right? And so it's like we start to unravel that. We start to allow the system to like unkink, and some of that is being able to express those emotions that never had a space or a place to be expressed in the first place.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was a great explanation. Thank you. Um,
Thanks.
and yeah, I would love to do that little exercise you had then. I'm sure our
Yeah.
listeners would.
Yeah, so this is something, it's funny because when I first started doing it, I was like, what are we doing? This doesn't feel like anything. But I stuck with it and I started to notice a benefit pretty quickly. And I've had countless clients where I tell them this and I say the same thing. I'm like, it's not even, it might not even seem like you're doing anything at first, but come back next week and tell me like
Mm,
how it helped. And every single time someone they come back and they're like, so I've been doing the practice and I'm actually noticing a difference, right? So in somatic experiencing, we call this practice orienting. Um, and it's something that you can do 3 to 5 times a day, maybe 30 to 60 seconds. It doesn't have to be a big thing. And the nice thing is you're not going to be closing your eyes. So even if you're driving, you probably could do this, but like just don't take your eyes completely off the road. But certainly it's going to be easier to do if you're in a place where you're not like, operating heavy machinery. So, what I would invite you to do first is just to allow your eyes to start to move around your space. Like imagine that your eyes are going on an adventure by themselves and just let them move and explore the space that you're in. Let them notice the shapes and the colors and what it discovers. And then as you're doing that, you might also notice sound that you're hearing, smells or tastes, and also a feeling on the skin. Like, can you sense the air in the room, the temperature of how it feels on your body, or maybe your clothes? And if you're sitting down, like, where do you feel that chair or that couch or that surface underneath you? And then just kind of come back into yourself and notice how you feel. Oftentimes, there's a lot of relaxation. Sometimes you might notice like a spontaneous deep breath, like that kind of kind of breath. Sometimes you might notice like, oh, I feel a little, wound up or like anxious. Like it's not, the goal is not necessarily to feel better, but oftentimes it does allow you to feel better. And this is similar to, you could think of a deer in a field eating grass. Like the deer will pop up every once in a while and look around and make sure that there's nothing sneaking up on it. So our nervous systems are not that different. Even though we live in this very modern age, there's a lot that the nervous system hasn't quite caught up to. And so acclimating yourself to orienting to your external environment helps to start to bring that attention inward. If I can determine that I'm safe in my out environment, it's a lot easier to take that awareness inside and start to like feel safe getting vulnerable with that. And I might also start to notice like the little subtleties that change in my experience from day to day, or even, from a few hours the last time that you did it. Um, but it's something where, you can start to practice that. And then the next step would be like, where do you notice or how do you notice that you're feeling comfortable?
This makes
Is that,
sense.
yeah, like a feeling of your feet on the floor, or, you're feeling your back or your butt in the chair, or might be something that you notice as you're doing that scanning, like, oh, like a picture or a knickknack or something that brings up like a positive memory. So we want to start to acclimate ourselves to not only the things that are stressing us out or like that we tend to notice, but also like the little moments of good.
Yeah. And it brings you back to the present moment too, which I think is so important.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Okay. Now that I'm nice and relaxed, is there anything else you want to share that we didn't discuss? If not, I'm going to
Oh,
ask people where they can find you.
no, I think this was great. I mean, there's so many different directions I feel like you can take talking about breath work and this type of stuff in. So happy to kind of provide this like beginner's
Yeah.
overview and a place that people can jump in, because oftentimes it might feel super overwhelming of like, well, how do I actually get started with this?
Mhm.
So, to me, like there's a lot of benefit in just knowing like, oh, okay, like you said, I don't have to practice this for an hour a day. Even I mean, if you were to slow down right now and just take like three nice deep breaths in and out of your nose, really focusing on like letting your diaphragm be engaged and that you're breathing deeper, that's a great way to start.
Mhm.
The orienting is something that you can do. There's little things that you can do to start where you are rather than feeling like, oh, I have to find another hour in the day to
Yep.
do these practices.
Yeah, which is what sometimes I feel like people assume it's going to be. And I'm like, no, baby steps, little things. Like do the
Absolutely.
orienting, do the deep breaths. Like, great. That's a great start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised like how much those simple practices can really help and help you build into something else. Because like for me, when I started to do these types of things and feel and experience the benefit of it, then I wanted to do more.
Yep.
Whereas if I tell a client like, oh, hey, like do like 15 minutes of meditation and breathing every day, right from the get-go, they might not. But I'm like, hey, let's do like 2 minutes. And
Yeah.
then next week do 5 minutes, and then they're coming back going, okay, what do I do now? Because I'm feeling
Mhm.
better. Right. So just letting it start organically like that is a good place to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This was so good. I'm sure our listeners are going to love this. Where can people find you if they're looking for you?
Yeah, so I'm in Instagram. My handle is Blue Magic Alchemy. I have a school platform, a community on the school platform called Pathways to Integration. It's free to join. There's live breathwork and meditation, as well as recorded practices that people can do there, and a community of practitioners who are there to support you. And I also have a podcast called The Vital Point Pathways to Integration, where I share more things like this.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, guys. This is all going to be in the show notes. I have a link for you too. So I'll make sure that everything is in the show notes.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you guys. See you on the next episode.